Hi, everybody. Welcome to Dynamic Sport Adventures Wild Path Podcast. Today's episode is From Stream to Science Fisheries Fieldwork Across New York. The next generation following the call of the Wild Path. Welcome to Dynamic Sport Adventures Wild Path Podcast, where we explore the outdoors, dive into conservation, and share the stories of those living the wild path. Today's episode guest is certainly someone living the wild path. We're joined by Lucas Reiter, Averill Park native, a SUNY grad from SUNY Cobleskill with Fisheries and Aquaculture, conservationist, tremendous angler, and someone who's really putting the boots on the ground or waders in the water across New York State. From Adirondack headwaters to Catskill trout streams and even tracking invasive species through canal system, Lucas has been right in the middle of it. Lucas, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Fred. This is awesome.
Yeah, and I've known Lucas's family for years, so this is full circle. I tremendously respect Lucas and love the stuff that he's doing, and I see the stuff he's doing. It's been just a great pleasure to watch a young generation do the work that I was so passionate about. So again, thank you for coming.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Fred.
Let's get started at the beginning. What got you into fishing in the outdoors?
Yeah, I started when I was young. Probably started fishing when I was 6 years old. I'm from East Post-and-Kill, Blue Factory Road to be specific. Living with little neighbors around. You have no choice but to explore the surroundings around you. Whether I was walking in the woods or riding four-wheelers or picking blueberries out in the yard or just watching the deer in the yard and stuff like that. There's also a pond across the road. The Mark 20 Fishing Game Club owns it. That's where I have some of my earliest fishing memories. I still fish it to this day. And every day after school, once I was old enough to be by myself, I would go down there and fish until dark, and then I would come home. I've been doing it for as long as I can remember, honestly.
Well, that's pretty cool. And going to SUNY Cobleskill into fisheries and aquaculture, and
Yeah.
being and just congratulations.
Thank you.
For
Thank you very
graduating.
much.
That's a huge success and huge amount of work. So
Yeah.
appreciate all that work that you've been doing, and we'll talk about that some more. What are some of your? So you just talked about some of your early fishing memories in Averill Park and Post and Kill. Was it family influence or self-driven?
Yeah, I was definitely family influenced. There were some self-driven aspects to it as well. I think my earliest fishing memory was with my grandfather on my dad's side. We were up at Alpine RV Resort in Corinth, I think it is. Just fishing with my my little push boat. And I think I had like a bobber and worm on or whatever. And I ended up getting a big bass on, and I probably had like 5 pound line, and I was fighting it, and my grandfather was like, "Oh, come on, you got to get it in," and like right at the bank, it snapped my rod in half, and then snapped my line, and then it was gone.
Oh no!
And I think that might have birthed the fisherman that I am today. Is that memory right there? It's it's one of the ones that has stuck with me.
I'm not gonna let that happen.
Exactly. And then my dad, obviously, he's taken me out a bunch as a young kid, and obviously, like I said, when I was old enough to kind of do things by myself, and just like I would just drive the four-wheel over to the pond, and pretty much self-taught. A lot of the bass fishing I've done, a lot of YouTube videos. A graduate of YouTube University is what people can say.
Yeah,
But
me too.
Yeah, of course. But it's definitely a lot of kind of a combination. I definitely learned a lot by myself, but also gained a lot of the passion from family for sure.
Was the reel an old Zebco, or it wasn't a Snoopy pole, was it?
No, it was a Lucky Lion pole. If anybody's ever heard of one of them.
Wow, can't believe you remember
I
that.
think it was a Zebco. If I had to guess,
They were very prevalent.
Yeah,
everywhere.
Yeah.
If you didn't have a Zebco, you didn't go fishing.
Exactly. So I have to guess that it was a Zebco.
Yeah. The first fish that really hooked you, literally or mentally?
Yeah, it probably would have been that bass over on Alpine Lake, but literally, I've had a few fish actually hook me. Unfortunately, nothing bad. A couple times I gotten hooked like in the hand or like the wrist and stuff, where it's like gotten pretty close to like a vein. And I'm like, ooh, ooh.
Yeah.
Like, especially with treble hooks, it's like, man, like they're they're nasty, especially like if you catch a pickerel or something that really likes to thrash around in your hand. It can get pretty wacky, which I've definitely gotten hooked a few times. But yeah, I mean
It hurts more coming out.
oh, 100%. Yeah. Thankfully, it's never gone past the barb.
Good.
And since then, I bought these hook cutters. They're almost like big dikes almost, but it's like designed to cut a hook just in case that would happen, because it's
Push it through.
yeah, exactly. Push it through. And
Something we don't want to do.
Exactly, but just in case.
Let's not do that.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, it's definitely a real possibility. That's why you should always wear sunglasses while fishing.
You should. Well, and I just bought a pair of Polaroids for fly fishing because I was
Yeah.
and they come flying back at
Right.
you.
Exactly. Because you hook yourself.
Right. So
I hook my shirt all the time.
we were up at we talked earlier before the podcast. We used to fish Union Falls. We'd go up in for a opening of walleye.
Yeah.
And we're in two flat John boats. And I look over in the other boat and I see a guy pull back the cast and he goes like this and he looks at it and he does it again. Well, it was stuck in the other his buddy in the boat's head. We're over there cutting it out of his head. So, yeah, be careful. Wear eye protection.
Yeah.
Know your boundaries of your flying hooks, please.
Maybe use some barbless hooks.
Yes. That's good for you and good for the fish, right?
Exactly. Right.
When did it shift from hobby, passion, and then maybe when do you think you decided on the career path, being a 4-year SUNY Cobleskill grad now?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I'd say doing some of the angler club in high school and the advisor at the time, Mrs. Guerin. Shout out Mrs. Guerin. She actually is the one that introduced me to SUNY Cobleskill. I had no idea that there was a college out there. I had played them like Cobleskill in football, like back in middle school and stuff. So I knew like the town, but I had no idea there was a university out there.
Cool.
So I was like, wow, that's pretty cool, because I didn't know you could really go to school for natural resources or let alone fisheries. So then she was like, yeah, they have a hatchery on campus. And I was like, what? That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So me and my dad went to go visit, and I was like, wow, this is the real deal. Like, they actually had a total rebuild of the hatchery and like the whole natural resource like programs and like plant science and stuff like that. They built a whole new building in 2015. And it's awesome. It's called the Center of Agriculture and Natural Resources, or CANNER, is what we call it. And it's got the hatchery, it's got a whole greenhouse, it's got all types of cool stuff. And when I went to visit there, I was like, whoa, like this is something I could definitely get behind. And I ended up going to see Paul Smith after that. And after I saw Cobleskill, I was like, no, this is where I want to go.
Yeah. Well, that's putting money where the mouth is. When you're, you want to have those programs,
Yeah.
you have all that infrastructure. That's a ton of money to put in.
Yeah.
And that's just awesome that they're able to do that.
Exactly.
I think you made the right choice, knowing you and hearing what your passions are and what you want to do. So, and you just touched on it a little bit, and I wanted to talk about this because this is a proud friend, knowing your family. And I wasn't 100%, but I had heard way back when that you went to Averill Park School.
Yep.
And there's a fishing club. So who started that fishing club, Lucas?
Yeah, so back in middle school, I met some friends, made some fishing buddies, if you will, and I was just kind of talking to them like, hey, like, there's no, like, fishing club in Averill Park, like, let alone middle school, not even high school. And it was a little bit later in the Algonquin, my Algonquin career, so I was like, you know what, maybe we take a rain check on this and revisit it in freshman year of high school. So one of my buddies, Napier Galt, we were kind of talking, and he was like, well, like, we should do this. And I was like, yeah, I think this is pretty cool. So I scheduled a meeting with the principal, Mr. Keelace, and we talked for, I don't know, probably an hour just about my ideas and why I thought it was a good idea and stuff like that. And he was all about it. I was like, I think it'd be awesome to have like a natural resource club, let alone a fishing club. Obviously, that's where my passion lands, but it's always about conservation as well. And then it was just about getting a advisor, and Bernice Guerin stepped up. Another shout out to Miss Guerin. And she was like, yeah, like, I love fishing. I'd love to help you out. And she was awesome. She was pivotal, honestly, in my life when it comes to just that kind of thing. And then obviously pointing me in the direction of Cobleskill. And we did some cool stuff while I was there, but it's even cooler to see what they do since I've been gone and like how conservation based it really is, doing tree plantings and trout in the classroom and stuff like that. Like it's pretty special to know that that I was a part of starting something that can give kids an opportunity to get their hands wet in the field of conservation and even fisheries, which is pretty cool to see.
You're kind of humble about it, Lucas, but I got emotional when you started talking about it because it's like my saying is get outdoors because I want families and kids to get outdoors and stuff
100%.
like that. But I mean, to do something like that in middle school and have those thoughts and everything, it's not normal. It's not it's not what happens nowadays as far as conservation and the protection of our waterways,
Yeah.
wetlands, biodiversity, and our lakes and streams.
Yeah.
So that's kind of huge, and it's great because I do know like Darlene, the teachers continue that program, and I've heard some cool stuff that's still going on there. So there really is a legacy, and I another shout out to Averill Park Schools for doing stuff like that. In my opinion, it's huge, and we need the next generation of conservationists and to protect our lands and our water. There's only one planet we live on.
Exactly.
So huge kudos to you, buddy, for that. I know we talked about you moving, your teacher talking about Cobleskill and wanting to go there. But what about the fishery science part? Was that something that was in your mind, or was it more, did you have actually a kind of path that you wanted to take, or was it just something that you looked into their courses available?
Yeah, so I don't know. I was kind of one of those high school kids that didn't know what I wanted to do really until Mrs. G kind of was like, hey, like Cobleskill, and obviously I went to go visit, and I was like, okay, they do some cool stuff here. And I saw there was fisheries and aquaculture, which obviously I didn't really know what that meant at the time. Obviously I saw the hatchery and I knew what aquaculture meant. I knew it was kind of just farming fish. So I didn't really know what I wanted to get out of it, I would say. But I think that I found out pretty quickly that I loved it and I wanted to just do it. I remember the first week of school, pretty much you go into I think it was fisheries techniques. You go in and I think the first day you go out in the field, or no, I apologize. This was intro to natural resources, and there's all types of labs that kind of like get you integrated in all types of. It's a broad class. It's a 101 class. So you do everything. You do soil science. You do bugs. You do birds. You do stuff like that. And then the electrofishing lab came about, and I was like, holy crap, electrofishing, my intro to electrofishing started in high school, which I can go back to that, but they were doing it with a backpack in the Cobleskill stream, and I was like, whoa, that sounds awesome. And we went out there, and it was just like minnows, and there was some small, some like young of the year smallmouth and stuff, which was really cool, but it was just awesome to see this really specialized piece of equipment, and that they just have this readily available, and that was just the tip of the iceberg, like going in later on in school, and that's I almost know a backpack electrofish like the back of my hand, working with them these past few summers professionally, but that was my first introduction to that, and I was like, wow, like this is really awesome. And then going to classes like fish tech where you are more focused on fish, and it's not everything, it's just fish, and you go on the field and you sample fish populations and water quality and plankton and macroinvertebrates, and you get all this data in Excel, and you have to tell the story. You have to tell the class and tell the professor what the data means. And after we started doing that, I was like, okay, this is pretty awesome, and I could definitely get behind this for the long haul for sure.
Yeah, it's cool work. And so maybe just explain, because I know what electroshocking is, and some people are like, oh my God, they're electrifying the fish. It stuns the fish. Could you just kind of explain that to them a little bit? And then you're doing species identification when you just maybe expand on that a little bit so people know what that is.
Yeah. So pretty much to simplify it as much as I can, it almost looks like the backpack portion of electrofishing, because there's also specialized boats and stuff. but for backpacks. It's almost like the Ghostbusters backpack.
Yeah.
It's just like a
That's
plastic.
perfect.
Yeah, it's like a plastic or it's mostly plastic, kind of like metal backpack that opens up like a book almost, and it has all types of dials that you can you can adjust your amperage and your volts, and then you have this. So you have this wand in your hand. That's the anode wand, and it goes to a big ring, and then there's a lever on your right hand, and you always wear lineman's gloves because you want to be safe. Safety is always the number one priority. Um, use the lineman's glove, and then you have a cathode. We call it the rat tail because it just kind of drags behind you. So that's your cathode. You have your anode. So once you press down on that trigger, it creates a circuit around you. I think it's about for the backpack. I think it's probably about 5 feet, 6 feet.
Bigger than I thought.
Yeah, just surrounding. It probably goes. I'm not sure.
No,
You're always in wadeable water, so you don't have to worry about how deep it goes really. Um, but it creates a circuit around you, and then whatever fish or invertebrates like crayfish aren't really affected as much. They can be stunned a little bit, but it pretty much creates. Excuse me. It creates a forced movement of the fish's muscles. So we use DC current or direct current, pulse direct current. Because if you use alternate current, um, it pretty much tears the muscle from the bone of the fish. But direct current doesn't do that, so that's why we use that. Because if you wanted to like just kill everything, if you're using you feel like invasive species in like a super overpopulated area, maybe AC would be the best option. But it was always pulse DC. So pretty much what happens is the fish come up, they flip up, pretty much belly up from their air bladder, and they're stunned for up to 1 minute I've seen. And you net them, put them in a bucket, and it takes, like I said, probably a minute, sometimes a little bit longer if the water's a little bit warmer. Because what we always learn is that stress is cumulative in fish. It just adds up. So you want to make sure you have clean water in your bucket. But um, it doesn't always kill the fish. It can kill them at some points. Like I said, stress is cumulative. So if it's a hot day and the water's warm, or if you don't have an aerator in the bucket, it can happen really quickly. Um, but yeah, they come to within a minute, I'd say, and then they're ready to go back. It just stuns them momentarily, just so
Yep.
you can net them. It doesn't really have any lasting effects. The only time I've ever seen it injure a fish is when the fish is close to the anode and it runs directly into it. Like I said, the force
Touches it.
yeah, the force swimming it makes them bump right into the anode, and I have seen fish die from that. So as long as we were trained in the USGS to pull away when you see that happening, just to make sure you don't kill any. Because a lot of the times, like the bigger trout would do that. So obviously, you don't want to kill a nice big trout. So I want to pull away. But most of the time, it's one of the most harmless sampling techniques for stream fishing or stream sampling, I should say.
Right. So, and people that don't know what USGS is, United States Geological Survey.
Yes.
And Lucas has been working a couple years now as a contractor with those while he was going to college. Awesome work on that too. We'll talk about some of that, some of the cool stuff that you've been doing,
Yeah.
from the High Peaks to the Catskill streams to Schoharie Reservoir. So we talked about why Cobleskill specifically. That makes a total amount of sense to me.
Yeah.
What's a typical week look like? Classroom versus field, basically.
Yeah, that's a good question. What they like to do is this is kind of what they told us freshman year, is that they like to do like an hour lecture for like 3 hours in the field. They want to have the least amount of lecture time and the most amount of field time, which once I heard that, I was like, wow, that's awesome. Like that's how school should be, honestly. So that was cool. Typical week. Okay. So obviously in school you have different classes, all kind of cover different bases. I'm going to try to think about a semester that would be a good example. So my fall of junior year, or no. Yeah, fall of junior year, I had fisheries biology, and then invertebrate zoology. So fisheries biology was my favorite class of all time. You pretty much just chase around fish everywhere.
That was one of the questions.
Yeah.
Cool.
So pretty much every class, like I said, maybe it was a half-hour lecture because I think it was a 5-hour class. Some of the classes in Cobleskill are super long, but it's because we travel. We travel like an hour to get to some of the spots, so it makes sense.
Yep.
And you want to obviously have the most field time. But yeah, so we go out in the field and we'd be in groups, and we'd all have sometimes multiple electrofishing boats, multiple nets and stuff like that. And our job was to record and catch as many fish species as we could. And we went everywhere from the Hudson River to South Bay, Whitehall, Lake Champlain, um, to Long Island, Sound, Shinnecock Bay, just all over Long Island, the Mohawk, just everywhere in this area. And then we went down to Long Island for a weekend trip, which was awesome. Um, and then, so that would be, I think that was, I can't remember what day it was. Might have been a Monday. And then, so that would be one class. And then you go to a class like invertebrate zoology with a different professor, and you would learn about, obviously, invertebrates. Most of the time it was like crabs and stuff like that. And there were some small things like flatworms and segmental worms. Like you went all along the whole lineage of pretty much everything. And you would go in the field, and either one day we were looking for fossils, one day we were looking for freshwater sponges. It was just a ton of field stuff. And then on Thursdays, every Thursday at noon, we would meet for our fisheries clubs. I wore this shirt for a reason. We have 3 fisheries-based clubs at Cobleskill. We have the American Fisheries Society, this is their merch. The SUNY Cobleskill Trout Unlimited chapter, and my personal favorite. I'm not biased. I definitely am. The Bass Fishing Club, because I was the president for 2 years, these past 2 years, and it was awesome. That's where I made all my friends, I'd say. So like after being in all your classes, obviously you're gonna have your classmates to like befriend and stuff. But it was super cool to be in those clubs because it was all different. There was upperclassmen, there was freshmen, there was all types of just like age diversity, I would say. And you just go in there and you share your passion with other people. You go on trips. Some of the friends I have now, like I wouldn't have made them if I wasn't in the clubs. And it's pretty cool to meet people that really care about the things you do. And you can kind of find your people a little bit, because it took me a little bit, because obviously college, moving away, and you have to make new friends and everything. It took me a little bit, but once I found my people, I found my people. I knew
Awesome.
I knew who my people were.
Yeah.
And that was one of the most special parts of Cobleskill was the fish clubs, and just like even just like what we did, like even volunteering for the community, working with local conservation chapters like the SCCA, the Schoharie County Conservation Association. Super cool. I worked with the Warner's Lake Improvement Association. I just wouldn't have had those connections if it wasn't for the clubs.
And SUNY Cobleskill.
And SUNY Cobleskill, exactly. So it's Cobleskill was definitely the right choice for me. I can't say enough good things about it, honestly. I'm not getting paid. I promise. I'm not getting paid.
I was
this
just
isn't a
gonna
paid ad.
I was just going to say, I think when we're done with the podcast, when I get it all keyed up and edited, we'll send it to SUNY Cobleskill for an advertisement.
Right,
So,
exactly.
We'll definitely send it to your teachers
Right.
when you get a chance.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm a hands-on learner, and I think I would do well in that kind of class setting. Because I'm not, even during school, I was always looking out the window. I couldn't sit still. I was just hyperactive, and I just couldn't do it. I did 2 years forestry and wildlife as a vocational, but I mean, I did look into Paul Smith's, but life interrupting life, as I say, I never did. I ended up doing other things. So I mean, when you're doing all that, what skills have you learned, or wouldn't what skills people wouldn't expect from what you've learned in the 4 years after graduating? Data work, sampling methods, et cetera. what's something stands out that people wouldn't expect, a skill set that you might have picked up?
Some people wouldn't expect. I'd probably say just the networking of all of it, just like getting to be, um, just like catering to different people. I mean, and it had a lot to do with the club things and stuff like that, but um, really just interacting with all types of people and getting the best out of them. Obviously, being a club president, having club officers, you got to coordinate things, and like there's definitely a lot of leadership skills that I've learned. I mean, my professor Mark Cornwell, he told us, I think probably the first class freshman year, he was like, someday like you're gonna be the boss. Like you might not know it now, but someday you're gonna be the boss, and people are gonna rely on you to tell them what to do. And I was like, oh, this guy's full of crap. Like and he was right. He was
Right,
right.
next thing you're president, you have to
Exactly.
organize the whole
Exactly. I'm
thing.
like, oh, we got to do this, this, and this, and like, oh, if we don't do this, this happens, and that's definitely a big thing that I learned and I acquired is just like people skills and just overall leadership, and it's going to benefit me for a long time. I know it.
As far as conservation and, protecting things, that cohesion of all the clubs and the schools and young people getting together and doing that,
Right.
that is a huge, huge thing in these days and times. And it works. It works well.
Mhm.
It spreads, and that's how we get things done. And
Right.
again, hats off to you, Lucas.
Yeah, because you talk about the generational gap. I mean, it's a real thing, unfortunately. That's why it's cool to do things like my last week at Cobleskill. So I wasn't just the president of the Bass Club. I was also the social media of TU, Trout Unlimited, and then I was also the VP of AFS. So for Trout Unlimited, we went to the Jefferson Central School, which is a little bit south of Cobleskill, and we just did like almost like a trout day or kind of just
Trout
like
in a classroom type thing? Or?
yeah, kind of. We went there just for a day. We brought a few brook trout in a fish tank and brought a few specimens in a jar. Like we brought brown and brook trout just to tell the difference between like a true trout and then like a char, like a brook trout. And then we brought macroinvertebrates from one of the local streams to just do like some identification stuff. And then like we also did some fly casting practice with the kids, and it was just cool to see how happy kids would be from stuff like that, and that maybe they wouldn't have been introduced to it otherwise. And I can say that I was a little emotional leaving there. I was like, man, like this is special. You can feel how special this is for the kids, and to be, because if I had somebody like that when I was in elementary school that came in, I might have been into this kind of thing way earlier, or at least maybe even more passionate than I already was. And it was really cool to be a part of something like that. And it's really important to do kind of like outreach events like that if you have the platform like we had with Trout Unlimited, and hopefully I will have some sort of platform like that in the future to continue that.
I'm sure you will, and that is part of this podcast.
Yeah.
I always talk about connecting kids and families to nature and the outdoors and conservation. You nailed it. You're living it. You're walking the walk, talking the talk, and walking the walk. When before we move into your fieldwork stories, one follow up is like, what? Let's see if we get a kick out of it. What separates someone who just fishes, or someone who actually understands fisheries?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question.
How you can answer this one?
Yeah, so I mean,
fishing is just absolutely fun.
Yeah,
and I highly recommend take a kid out,
right,
get a Snoopy pole or Zebco, whatever.
Not as hard as people think.
It's not as hard as people think.
I mean, you can get out, you can get started.
You can buy worms from Stewart's.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
You can. I mean, they have everything there. They have split shots. They have hooks. They have bobbers. I mean, you could be fishing and have a drink in your hand for $20.
That's right.
Like it's
It's
not hard. But I will say that obviously I have two sides of the coin because I started fishing just by myself and stuff with my family. And then I guess getting into fisheries and kind of like fisheries ecology, or aquatic ecology to be more exact. I definitely, as a fisherman, you don't really see the big picture. You're always like, oh, I want to. Okay, so when you start fishing, you're like, oh, I want to catch a fish, but then like when you're experienced, like I want to catch this fish, and only want to catch this fish. And I think once I started to be kind of a fisheries professional, you can kind of see the relationships between the fish and where those fish would tend to be, rather than kind of guessing. Obviously, if you fish enough, you're gonna find out where they are. Just put like from sampling streams and lakes, you're like, oh, like fish like this, or if the water's this temperature, they're spawning, or if they like to feed, or they're not feeding when it's this cold, or stuff like that. I definitely got to peel the orange a little bit to reveal layers like that I hadn't thought of before. And just the ecology part, just like the whole relationship of everything. Like, oh, like I mean, it comes back to fly fishing and the hatches of the invertebrates. Like, oh, one of the invertebrates hatch, one of the mayflies hatch. And I'm a novice when it comes to fly fishing, so I'm not gonna get into that much. Um, but like same thing with just like bass fishing. Like, oh, like when the water's temperature is this warm, they're starting to group up in mating pairs or spawning pairs. And I mean, for stripers, right when it gets to 60, 65 degrees, they're not really going to be biting. They're going to be focused on spawning. And when it's down to 55, that's when they're first coming up, and that's when they're most inclined to feed, which I found out that's pretty accurate this year with the success that I had. Um, but yeah, I mean, just like, I don't know, everything that kind of compiled in my Cobleskill career and some USGS stuff, I kind of like reinforced some of my thoughts of fish in general. Um, and it definitely helps me make informed decisions about where I want to fish for sure. I don't want to give out too many of my secrets, but
Yeah.
it definitely
Where'd you catch
helps.
that? I don't remember.
I think
Yeah.
right.
Let's move into some of your fieldwork stories
Yeah.
and your work, and uh, you got some pretty incredible field experience, and so we'll dig into it a little bit.
Mhm.
We'll try. I might skip a couple here as we move along, but Adirondack High Peaks. What is the sampling? What's it? I know you went up and did some sampling of water.
Mhm.
So, and you also did other stuff up there. Let's talk about the Adirondack High Peaks. What's it like sampling water in that terrain? And any tough conditions or memorable days. I know we talked before the podcast, but as a guide, I think that's a little humorous too.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you ended up just fine. But
Right, exactly. So I'm definitely gonna go back to what I was saying earlier. Is I mean the Cascade and Porter hike that I had to do. It was the first one. It was actually my first day working last summer. I think it was like 2 days out of school. I ended up going up to Cascade Mountain. Never hiked it before. It was actually my first time hiking in probably a year. Which, if I knew what I was getting myself into, I probably would have. I don't know, done some stretches or hydrated a little more or something, but. No, I got up there. It was probably a day like this, probably like 75 degrees, and I started hiking at probably 8 o'clock. And I mean, it was awesome. It was kind of funny because I had my USGS, I had my high vis hat and my shirt, and I was just kind of like bombing past like families and stuff, and I could hear them talk like, "Oh, is that a forest ranger?" And I'm like, "Only if you knew, I'm just a guy sampling water." So I had a backpack full of these plastic jars, pretty much, and some ice because you have to keep them cold after you take the sample. So the objective was to get to a trib that's on the backside of Porter Mountain, and these samples I believe it was acid rain. It was acid rain study.
back in the 70s.
Yeah, so it was acid rain study to kind of just monitor that, and a lot of it was snowmelt as well. But I think they just wanted to see like any contaminants or anything in the water up there. So I had a GPS that had a bunch of waypoints on it, and this day, it was just excuse me, I think it was just one waypoint, but it was such a long hike. That's why there was only one for the day, and obviously it was my first one, so I don't think they wanted to like put me on some crazy goose chase or whatever.
Right.
So what I ended up doing, it's a pretty long hike. I can't remember how long it is. I want to say it's like 7 miles straight, and then 14 miles round trip. I'm just off the top of my head, I'm not sure if that's accurate, but so what I did, I went up, and then if you've ever been up there, it's kind of like a spur where you go to Cascade if you want to, if you can keep going up Porter. So Porter was the main objective. That's where my site was. So I was like, hey, if I have enough time, I'll come see Cascade after. And then, so I pretty much went to Porter. It took me, I don't know, probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours to get up to there. ate my lunch on top of Porter Mountain, which was awesome. Definitely the coolest place I've ever eaten a PB&J sandwich. I'll tell you what. Just took a quick lunch while just looking at the beautiful scenery. I was the only one up on Porter. Everybody else was on Cascade, which
Cascade's very popular.
exactly. But Porter is also awesome. It has the same kind of rock face at the peak, and I kind of just sat there for a little bit and just looked around and looked at the snow caps on the mountain still because it was this time last year and there was still snow up there, so it was cool to see. But what I didn't think of is that one of the trails was going to be closed, and that's the trail that I needed to go on. And so I ended up trying to go around to a different trail, and I was looking on my GPS, and it looked like I was on the right trail. And as I was walking, all of a sudden it like flicked to like where I actually was, and I was way off course. And I was like, oh man. I ended up going down the super steep trail. So I ended up going back up this trail, and it was super steep. I mean, I was clawing at roots and stuff to climb pretty much. And it was a marked trail, like it was a legit trail, which I thought was insane. So I ended up going up, and then I went back to the closed trail, and I was like, all right, I guess this is the trail I'm supposed to follow. So I started walking, and I probably got, I don't know, like a mile and a half down this closed trail, and you could tell it had been closed for probably 10 years. I mean, there was trees and all types of crazy stuff blocking it. And so I kept walking, and I got to this clear patch of just grass, and I was okay. We're getting pretty close. I was probably within a half mile, and I got to the edge, and I looked down, and there must have been a huge landslide because the trout is gone. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. That's why the trail's closed.
That happens a lot up in the Adirondack.
Yeah, so I was like, oh man, this stinks. Like, how the heck am I supposed to get down there? So I don't know how I had phone service, but I called the one guy in the office that I was doing the work for, and I was like, hey, there's a big landslide up here. I'm not really sure what to do here. Like, what do you think I should do? And he was like, well, are there any other like little tribs up there? Like, did you walk across any other like any water? And I was like, oh yeah, there was some like probably ephemeral streams, kind of just like snow runoff. And it's like, all right, well, if there's some there that's good enough to get a sample, just grab one of those and we'll be good. And I was like, oh, all right, sounds good. So I went up back to one little stream that I had crossed over, and I took my sample, screwed it up, put it in my pack with an ice pack, and then started walking back. And then I went up to Cascade, and it was one of the coolest views I've ever seen. I wish it was pretty late in the day. It was probably around like 4 or 5, so I had to get back. But I was just kind of sitting there like, wow, like, this is pretty awesome. And the fact that was, I think, yeah, it's still the coolest hike I've ever done because I haven't done many. And those are the first 2 high peaks I've ever hiked. And I was just kind of just sitting there taking it all in, and I was like, man, like, I got paid to do this. This is pretty awesome.
That is pretty awesome.
So and that was that. But then we ended up doing some the next day, which if anybody's familiar with the Ausable Lakes,
yep.
I went down there this time I had a buddy of mine. Wasn't a buddy at the time, but he would soon be a buddy just from being a coworker. His name was Zach Altheiser. Shout out to Zach. We kind of did some hiking there, just some small stuff, and then went to the Gothics, and it was kind of like just downhill from the Sawtooth mountains there, which we didn't go all the way up, but like we went past like Rainbow Falls and super cool, just like right along the headwaters of the Ausable River, which is so awesome. I'm sure there's so many trout in there, but obviously I was working, and it would have been a bad decision if I brought a fly rod or anything. But I mean, you should have seen some of the pools in there.
I've seen
like
them.
15 feet deep, and I'm like, man, there's got to be huge brook trout in there. But
yeah.
I just had to keep walking, and obviously, who doesn't love a waterfall? And there's a bunch of waterfalls. Like I said, Rainbow Falls was super cool, which was kind of funny because I was talking to Zach. I was like, man, I wonder why they call it Rainbow Falls. And we walked up to it, and we're just getting like sprayed by the mist. And if you look down the creek that comes down from the falls, and you look like perpendicular from the falls, the mist turns into a rainbow. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
The spray mist coming from it with the sun out. Yeah.
Exactly. The sun came at the perfect angle, and it was pretty cool. And then we did that. And like I said, we didn't go all the way up to the Gothics, which I'm sad because I could have added that to the list of the 46ers. But
yeah.
I go back another time. It was just cool. It's just awesome to get out there, especially with another person, just because you can just talk the whole time about whatever, and it adds some enjoyment as well. But and that was the two trips early last summer. Um, but there was also some other things. It wasn't High Peaks, but there was some later on last summer. I went and stayed in Old Forge for a couple
Oh,
months,
cool.
a couple days, or a couple nights actually. And that wasn't High Peaks. I really was just kind of like sites around town. But even then, it's like an old like Adirondack town, like just kind of driving around in your official U.S. truck or the U.S. government truck. Like it was
Right.
pretty cool. Um, um, but yeah, it's just awesome getting up there and doing sampling in places that you probably wouldn't have been otherwise. It was pretty cool stuff. I'm not gonna lie.
That's awesome. I mean, I have here a lot of your field work and everything. I want to jump to some of them so we don't run out of time.
Yeah.
So, you did some invasive species
Yeah.
around goby. You did some work in the Champlain Canal and the Catskill trout studies. And, I have down here
Mhm.
Schoharie Reservoir work. Out of those, I mean, was there something memorable about those that conservation-wise or even passion-wise that you're like, wow, this is pretty cool?
Yeah, so I'd say I don't know. They're kind of both up there. I mean, the round goby's a big problem. Um,
Invasive.
it's a very bad invasive species. I mean, if people know about it, it's because they're everywhere pretty much.
Yeah.
Really bad in the Great Lakes, St. Lawrence River. They're in the Hudson River and the Mohawk River. They're all over the place. On Oneida Lake, everywhere.
They are in the Hudson.
They are in Hudson.
Oh, okay.
But the thing about the Hudson is that, and I've seen some studies done about their tolerance to salinity. So I think they can only go so far because of the brackish qualities of the estuary. Um,
And that changes by climate and rainfall
exactly
and
right,
flow.
right, exactly. But the biggest worry right now is where they're not, and that's Lake Champlain.
They're not in
They're
there.
not in there.
Really?
Right.
They got the fleas and it's other invasive, but
Right, but they're
that's,
not. They don't have the goby
that's
yet.
awesome.
But the thing is that it's a huge problem because the past few summers we've done trawling on the Champlain Canal, because they're kind of trying to track um,
Oh, because the
the
connection.
movement up the lock system exactly. So as of last summer, they weren't above Lock 1 yet, which who knows if that has changed. I'm sure they'll find out pretty quickly, because if that does change, then that closes the lock system, which obviously is a huge thing for kind of recreation and stuff like that. Which I thought we were gonna have to do it last year, but we never found one. But yeah, I mean, we did trawling for larval goby, which we ended up catching some bigger ones, but a lot of the times it was a lot of like super tiny tessellated darters, which they look just like goby, so it's kind of tough to tell them apart. But the threat to Champlain is that they're kind of like squished between 2 points because they're in the St. Lawrence and they're in the Hudson, so they're kind of like bang bang, like they're
Yeah.
trying to get in there. So it's bad. It's a weird thing because the problem is that they eat a lot of the smallmouth eggs and the native.
Because they're a smaller fish, so they're going
Right.
after smaller food.
Yeah, they only grow about I don't know, 6 to 8 inches. Um, so they definitely cause a problem with that, and then they obviously they're a benthic fish, so they stay on the bottom, and they take a lot of the space away from like the native darters and just other native benthic species. So it's a problem with biodiversity. So they're definitely a big issue. But down with the Catskill trout stuff, which that was probably the most, I don't know, impactful, but like most significant work I've done professionally probably, because it influences. So the Catskill Mountains they have a huge drinking water system for the New York City water supply, and one of the big issues is the turbidity in the water from the clay in the ground there. A lot of the streams from these big natural disasters, like a big tropical storm, have washed all this sediment and these large stones and gravel away. So it's pretty much just left to the bare clay. So a lot of the times when a big rain comes,
Oh,
all this clay water gets washed out in New York City, and they don't. Um, they don't filter the water. They disinfect the water. They don't filter it.
Uh,
So obviously, if you're down there and you turn your faucet on and it looks like strawberry milk, you're like, oh man, what the heck is this? But it's because they don't filter it. So the thing is they're trying to stabilize the banks and create bank and kind of substrate stabilization so this doesn't happen. And what our job was to figure out how these stabilizations were affecting the trout. So we would go to these sites that had these projects on them, pre and post, and kind of did a population estimate and survey, which a lot of places had tons of trout. But obviously, populations can change just like that year to
Yes.
year to year. So it's very valuable to kind of keep up on it and see the dynamics and ebbs and flows of the populations. Excuse me. And it was a ton of fun. I mean, memorable. One of the most memorable days was one of our longest days. I think we were out there. We worked for a total of 17 hours.
wow.
Which it was. I think 4 of those hours were driving, but then the rest of it was just back breaking, like head down, netting fish the whole day. Which
A
it
long
literally
day.
was. Yeah, it was literally sunrise to sunset. It was pretty rough, but I mean those days that's where you make your money. And obviously being out there with the guys was also pretty fun.
What's also where we find out the problems or the positives too.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
that work is necessary, needs to be done. So again,
Right.
another huge. You know, I knew you were my hero before you even come in here. So,
Thanks, Fred.
so we talked about you work for USGS. You 4-year grad now from Cobleskill. What about? So I'll skip it a little bit ahead here. We're going to run out of time here soon, but. Life outside of school. You're also an avid fisherman, and you're self-proclaimed boat captain. I know you bring a lot of people out on the Hudson River.
Yeah.
We talked about. I was fishing stripers way back before people were even
right before it was cool.
interested in it. And I'll just say this one thing about New York State is a fail on New York State that Hudson River is an awesome fishery.
Yeah.
And they just do not put enough, in my opinion, amount of work in to promote it
Right.
or to help it. I don't know why you wouldn't even want to put a fish hatchery somewhere in Albany.
Yeah.
Because of all these running. When I was growing up, a herring were so thick in the tribs that you could walk across.
Yeah.
There was a time when you talked about the brackish water coming in. There was one year where the blue crabs came all the way up to Schodack Island State Park
Really,
because we were catching them on a piece of hot dog and chicken.
Really?
And as soon as you broke the water, they let go. So you had to net them.
Yeah.
People always ask me, "How'd you get into conservation?" Well, I'm a river rat. I grew up on Castleton on Hudson.
Okay. Yeah.
And so the
that
Castle
one,
Boat Club every year, the Clearwater sloop would come in. I sat on the lawn when I was a young kid, very young, listening to Pete Seeger singing folk music, and then we would go on to Clearwater doing turbidity tests and stuff like that, just for fun. So
Right.
I mean, that's how we hook. Kids are getting hooked in it. And some of the stuff you talk about, the fish clubs and stuff like that, is huge. So life outside of school.
Yeah.
How does that side of your life tie into your work now? And now that you're going to be working full time,
Yeah.
I highly suggest that you leave some time for fun. So.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I don't know. The overlap is kind of like, I don't know, just talking with your coworkers or like, oh, like, look what I caught last night, or like, oh, you guys want to go fishing over the weekend, is like, I don't know, kind of building that camaraderie and just kind of your coworkers can be your friends as well, and I think that's one of the biggest things these past few years is that's what happened. Is it was actually my friends from school that got hired along with me, and it was actually one of the reasons why I got hired at USGS was some of my friends. Shout out to Tom. Yeah, I mean it's really just just fishing, hiking. I mean, in the fall, watching football. Go Bills.
Yeah. Go Bills.
But yeah, I mean, stripers this year have been unreal. Really, I mean, like you just said, Castleton Hudson. I haven't fished anywhere but Schodack this year. I haven't felt the need to. I don't like the riffraff of Troy and the dam. I mean, I don't know if
it can get pretty clogged up there. And then when I was doing it, there was nobody.
Exactly, and I wish it was still like that, but it's gotten so popular with, like, I don't know, the Facebook communities and stuff like that, that it's it's rough up there. So I like the more greenery down Skodak and like I don't know like Coxsackie and the southern part of the northern Hudson or northern tidal Hudson I should say. That I like more, but I mean this spring it's really just been that. Even the last couple weeks of school, was like I was hankering so bad to get home to go on the river with my dad, and I was like,
He did pretty good this year too.
Yeah, he did, yeah, 100%. He went out with a couple of buddies, the one day, and they did awesome. And that was in Albany, which the fish are up there, but I don't know if I can catch them down in Skodak, and I'd rather do that.
And it's not as much travel time in the boat. I mean,
Exactly.
we used to fish where the thruway bridge and the railroad bridges. There, the piers, the fish hold right behind them.
Yeah.
Depending on what tidal is, if the tide's coming in or out.
Yeah, right.
And the flow, and it depends on how much rain they got up north.
Right.
The whole, you got to really, and you talked about, fishermen or fisheries student,
Yeah.
you learn about that.
100%.
And the turbidity and, all that different baits and
Right.
is it warm enough? Are the herring here? Are the shad here?
Exactly.
So it's all
connected.
All connected.
100%.
So, favorite species to target?
Okay, so I mean, we already hinted at
I already know
it's
this,
striped bass. I
Yeah,
mean, there's really no question.
And
I mean,
bass in general.
and, yeah, I mean, bass in general, obviously, but no, stripers are awesome. I mean, it's so awesome. I mean, me and my dad were kind of talking about it a couple weeks ago. It's like it's so special that we have. It's a world class fishery, and just a stone's throw away from home here. Obviously, about 20 minutes from the nearest launch, I would say. And I just think it's so cool, and we're blessed to have that special of opportunity to catch fish of this caliber and just I mean it's just awesome because people grind all day long on the surf in Cape Cod or in the canal or in New Jersey, and they catch two and they're like, oh, this is an awesome day. And this year this is my best year yet, and I went out and I caught 6, and I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. And they're all 40 plus inches.
Yeah.
Because this is their spawning grounds. Obviously,
Yep.
You're not going to get 40s consistently on the surf because they're not there. They're out in the deep. They're not worrying about feeding as much. They're really just about travel and conserving energy. But man, it's striped bass, and it's really not close.
All right. So if you had one day, one rod, anywhere in New York, where are you going? Stumped you maybe.
You did. One day, one rod. It would probably be up at my childhood pond up at the Martoni Sportsman's Club. I can't lie. It's so special to me, even because I mean there's bass, pickerel, and crappie and perch in there. There's nothing crazy. It's just your typical suspects, but just like the whole quietness of it. It's like I have the whole place to myself most of the time, and there's really not a better fishing spot in my mind. 'Cause I was just there the other day. I mean, I'm 21 years old now, and I've been fishing there since I was old enough to hold a fishing pole, and it's still just as special to me. Because man, obviously it's always about catching the fish, but it's about peace of mind more these days. Obviously, we all live busy lives, and we all spend way too much time on our phones, and it's just awesome to kind of get unplugged and have an area where you're really not going to get bothered by anybody.
You're making me emotional again. Again, that's what this podcast is about.
Yeah.
And to hear it from a 21-year-old, people out there, please listen to what Lucas is saying. This is something he grew up with. How I grew up with, I have still a favorite picture of mine, me fishing off the bridge down there. Used to be Agway, just before the Skodak Island State Park.
I know what you're talking about.
And there was the road doesn't go through there anymore. And I had pictures of me, the little kid, fishing off that. My grandfather hanging out there. You had to reel them way up off there. But that was a day out. That's memories. Mm-hmm. They're not going to remember favorite foods and movies and video games. They're going to remember like you remember. And that just warmed my heart. And I can't stress that enough to people and what you clued into. And I hope you continue to have those thoughts. When you get in the hustle and bustle of work and life, and as you get older, those are the things that the mental health and it helps save that stress and just, in my opinion, just a better life.
It's a great thing to fall.
That's what the wild path is all about.
No, nature is always a great thing to fall back on. I mean, it's always going to be there for you. And that's why we got to be there for it, because it's always there for us.
We got only about 5 minutes left, but for younger listeners, you're 21, but I'm sure some of these teachers are going to pick this up and talk to kids at the school, from when you graduate high school at Averill Park. So for the younger listeners and about thinking about the path, is there any advice you'd give them?
Yeah, there's definitely some advice I would give them. And I guess I wish I took this advice myself, is you don't really need to know what you want to do. I'm like I said, I just graduated college, and I'm not really sure what my career path is going to take me. I'm kind of just going to go out and experiment with different jobs and see what kind of sticks. And that's okay. You don't need to know. It's always like, oh, like people are always asking you junior year, senior year of high school. You're like, oh, like what do you want to do with your life? And you're like, I don't know. And you're all stressed about it. Like, you don't need to be stressed. Like, let it come at you in waves. Like, life is a journey, like take it one chapter at a time. You don't need to be stressed about the future. Like, just handle the now, and whatever you enjoy now, do that. And if you stop enjoying that, try something else. Like, you don't need to get stuck in one area. Try to like broaden your horizons, and definitely don't stress about the future. It'll be just fine.
Yeah, you nailed it, buddy. As everything you said today, it's great advice, and I hope people heed it. It's huge, especially nowadays, the chaos going on.
Yeah, 100%.
This has been. I knew you'd be a great guest, and again, I know you're humble about it, but you are a hero of mine. I only know you through your family. I hope we can fish together someday.
100%. I would love that.
And you are going to be working for New York State DEC this summer.
Yep.
So you got that job in
Stanford.
So
Yep, seasonal job. So if anybody's looking for somebody after September 30th, here I am.
Yeah. So and again, that's another, as I said before the podcast, a great resume, great experience, and you'll do.
That's the goal.
As I'm starting to know you more and more here, you'll do awesome. So keep up the great work. That important of networking, everything we talked about when you were at Cobleskill is huge. Join your local trout unlimited and your conservation organizations.
Do that.
Yeah. So those things do help the environment and keeping our environment safe and for the future generations. I'm hoping that Lucas has a bunch of kids and they have the same memories that he did growing up. So kudos to your parents and grandparents too, because that's how we all do these things. I know when my daughter was little, I'd bring her fishing. She outfished me all the time, all the time. So where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years?
Oh, man. Wow. Hopefully solidified somewhere. Maybe building a family. I'm not sure. I'm not stressed about it. Hopefully financially stable, but
I'm sure you will be.
Yeah, and hopefully like in a solid job. Hopefully I'm not hopping around seasonal jobs. I really just want to find something I like and kind of build on that. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm just kind of tackle it as it comes. Just keep building my resume, and I'm sure that something I really like is gonna come, and I'm gonna know like, hey, this is it. Like, let's do this. So hopefully solidified in all walks of life, I guess, with some roots somewhere. Not really sure where yet, but.
Well, Lucas, you're definitely following the wild path the way it should be followed, and honor to have you, quite honestly.
My pleasure.
And I hope we can stay in touch, and good luck with the job this year. It's been awesome. Really appreciate you coming and sharing your story and experience. It's something that I think other people in your generation should listen to, and if they're into conservation and everything, and hopefully follow what their heart leads to, like you do, you'll land on your feet no matter where you go. I'm almost 100,000% positive of that. I think the work.
I appreciate that.
What stands out is what you're not just talking about conservation. You're out there doing the work. So everybody, thanks you for watching or listening to the Dynamic Sport Adventures Wild Path podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, follow Wild Path Podcast. Share it with someone who loves fishing or the outdoors, and by all means, get outdoors and explore your own wild path. Until the next time, thank you, Lucas, for coming today.
My pleasure.
Stay wild. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, Ted.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.